Is it working? Yes. Professor Vinicius, can you check yours?
Hello.
Yes.
Yep, it's working.
Yes,
Thank you.
it is working. So I think we shall start for those who are online. Punctuality is everything. Those who are arriving will arrive. Don't worry, we can let them in. I will clarify some things. Even though this event is going to be conducted mainly in English, you can speak in other languages because this is a multicultural event. So the languages you want to speak, you are open to express yourself in either Portuguese, Spanish, English, or something else, if you will. Okay? Yes. Portuñol as well, why not? The ambassadors told me that the biggest language in the world is the Portuñol. I thought it was the Chinese, right, Dr. Xiaoshu? Dr. Su Xiaoshu from the Business Computers Institute, the director, Chinese director, may say, no, the Chinese is the most spoken language in the world, right, Professor Vinicius?
Yeah, the Mandarin. Wow, if you consider English as second language, yeah, but perhaps Mandarin would take over soon.
Yeah, the universal language is English, as it was in the past. You know, the French we use in diplomacy, but nowadays we use English. So we start in English and then we can move on and switch to other languages. So today we are going to, Professor Vinicius and I, we are going to moderate this panel, and we wanted to make something like not very, very formal. Of course, we have to have an outline of these presentations for you who are at home, online, watching online, also to know what's going on. But yeah, the ambassadors, they want to talk to you. They want to interact with you. So the idea is they are going to make their remarks, and then we are going to start like a ping pong or questions and answers, thoughts, and whatever, okay? So that's the idea of this panel. I will start and will pass the word to Professor Vinicius to make some remarks as well. So can we start? Are we online? Yes? And we on YouTube? Yes? Can you give us a signal that everything is okay on YouTube? Yes, we are on YouTube. So good evening. Boa noite. Buenas noches. Today I cannot control myself. I will have to speak in Spanish. I'm sorry. Because I have my ambassador here. It's not any kind of ambassador. It's my ambassador, the ambassador from my country, Uruguay, Vinicius. So I have to speak some Spanish. Okay, so this seminar today, we have the great honor to have the ambassadors with us. Is the present international system from the Latin American and African perspectives. And we love this panel that was suggested by the Ambassador Guillermo from Uruguay to bring the voices from Latin America and Africa. Of course, they are not representing the entire region, but they are bringing the voices, they are bringing their perspectives. And in nowadays world, and I think Professor Vinicius is going to agree with me, we need to speak out, we need to analyze, we need to understand what is going on. And I like something that the ambassador, my ambassador from Uruguay told me during a meeting we have today with the president director of FAAP. Why not to start the connections through education, Vinicius? So these bilateral and multilateral relations we have in the educational world, they are not going to stop. They continue. And we have to enhance this kind of liaisons between nations, the civil relations between nations, and try to do anything. If we talk with each other, if we try to understand each other, we have something. And then the diplomatics will do their job, which is trying to connect. That's the idea of these seminars, reflecting on the world, reflecting on the region of Latin America, the region from which we speak out, and try to see what's going on, what are the next movements, and try to understand. That's the idea of these seminars we have been organizing here at FAAP and the seminar for today. Professor Vinicius, you want to say something?
I think, Lourdes, that the theme could not be more fortunate because, unfortunately, often mainstream IR theories, they ignore the role of regions like Latin America and Africa and having representatives from countries of those regions here today, it's a benefit for enhancing our understanding of how the world is being reconfigured and given a perspective that encompasses also countries that are not often well covered, unfortunately, by IR mainstream theories is crucial, not just for the benefit of our students, but
Professor,
also,
move
yep,
here.
move here. Okay,
Yes,
sorry.
for the light.
So the idea that we have to understand the different perspectives, and particularly those perspectives that are unfortunately not so well covered in the textbooks and by current scholarship. So I think this panel accomplishes this function, filling this huge gap about these perceptions coming from outside what the academics think that are relevant. And of course, all voices are relevant in the current context in particular.
Yeah, when you speak about perspectives and for instance, in the discipline I teach, which is intercultural and global competence, you have to consider that the only way we can communicate and get on well and try to understand each other is to create this common space, the common space in which you have different thoughts, you have different views of the world, but you speak. You build the intercultural dialogue. And that's the idea. Okay, Vinicius, let's call the ambassadors to compound the table for today.
Yes, let's start.
Let's start. You start or I start?
You start, because I think you should have the honor to call the first guest, who is, as you said, your ambassador.
My ambassador, yes, my ambassador. I was going to call the lady.
Okay, we
I
can
was
go
going to
other
call
way.
the
Yeah.
lady first.
Okay, ladies first.
Not
Okay.
because I don't like my ambassador, but the ladies first, right, ambassador? So I will call, I have the honor to invite Her Excellence, the Ambassador of Botswana in Brazil, Miss Benetia Chingapane. Please have a seat, Ambassador. Hold the next.
Okay. So we also have the honor to welcome here today His Excellency Mr. José Pedro Chantre de Oliveira, Ambassador of the República of Cape Verde, Cabo Verde to Brazil. Thank you very much for attending.
Onde quiser, embaixador, por favor. Pode sentar onde o senhor quiser.
Yeah, please.
Now is my turn.
Yeah.
To call my ambassador. Yes, it's my honor to call my ambassador. I don't translate the name of the country because I have to say it in Spanish. República Oriental del Uruguay. Do you know why is República Oriental del Uruguay? Any guess? In the audience on YouTube, why is República Oriental, why Oriental del Uruguay? Why? The ambassador is going to answer that. So let's call Ambassador Guillermo Valles Galmes, His Excellency, please. Welcome. Ambassador, why República Oriental del Uruguay?
Well, the short answer will be that we don't have a name, a proper name. It's the Eastern Republic from River Uruguay, which today separates Argentina from Uruguay. So we are the land, the province at the time, and now it's the Republic eastern to the River Uruguay.
Exactamente, that's it, yes. Está ao oriente do Rio Uruguay. Very good. So I will introduce the first speaker, which is the ambassador, Guillermo Valles Galmes. I'm going to do it very quickly because his curriculum is very vast. But something that is very interesting, it does Ambassador Guillermo Valles, which is Uruguayan, of course, and he's a diplomatic career, and he has served in many, many countries, in continents. And I think his first destination, he was the first Uruguayan ambassador in China, and he has a lot of experience in Asia and China and many other countries in Europe and in Latin America as well. He has held diplomatic posts in Latin America, Europe, Asia, and the United Nations as well. And he was Uruguay's first ambassador in China, I mentioned that already, and to the European Union, Belgium, Luxembourg, and the World Trade Organization, and the UN in Geneva. He served as Vice Minister of Foreign Affairs of Uruguay and acted as Minister of Foreign Affairs in several occasions. And he worked for the United Nations for 6 years as the Director of the Division International Trade in Goods and Services and Commodities, and UNCTAD. He also led the Mercosur diplomatic negotiations between 1992 and 1996, and he has served as dispute settlement arbitrator at the World Trade Organization cases involving Indonesia and Taipei, Turkey and the USA and China. My goodness, Ambassador. Well, USA and China, the USA and Canada, Qatar and the United Arab Emirates, and the Dominican Republic and Costa Rica. He holds a degree in law and social sciences from the University of la República. All of us are graduated. We have the counselors here. Please say hello al cónsul de Uruguay, please. Levanten y digan hoy. Temos cónsul de Cabo Verde também. Onde está o cónsul de Cabo Verde? Aqui, por favor, cónsul. Não sei se temos mais autoridades que não mencionei, mas é bom cumprimentá-los, né? Okay, and he was graduated in law and social sciences from the University of la República and earned a doctorate in diplomacy in Uruguay. And he's also a professor at Orretes University in Uruguay and the Catholic University in Uruguay as well, Universidad de la República also. And he was awarded with the Grand Cross of the Order of Rio Branco here in Brazil. So I'm not going to extend myself because he has a lot of experience. And he put, and I think I need to highlight that you are married with a Japanese lady, Sachio Kajita Valles, and he has a son who is Agustin Ken Valles Kajita. That's magnificent. Let's welcome Ambassador Guillermo, please. Ambassador Guillermo, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. It might be sort of, good evening, everyone. Right away.
You just let us know.
Perhaps we can show it right away. But first and foremost, I would like to say that I'm very thankful to FAAP for this invitation and for the outstanding work of FAAP, not only here in São Paulo, but internationally and certainly in Brasilia. It was very easy for me, let me tell you, Lourdes, to sort of open this invitation that was done directly to the Ambassador of Uruguay, to my colleagues, the Ambassador, my dear sister from Botswana, and my brother from Cabo Verde, because the outstanding back record of FAAP and the prestigious projection of FAAP in Brasilia as well. So I'm sure that I'm speaking on behalf of, they will say it by themselves, but we are delighted to be with you today. What we are going to discuss could take us weeks for sure. First and foremost, I would say that I would like to make use of the freedom of speech, very well known in FAAP, in all universities and all faculties, but particularly here. And therefore, I would speak on my own and Latin American perspective indeed, but not necessarily the official vision of Uruguay. This is important to be said by an ambassador always, because we are supposed to represent the views only from the government. In my case, I will speak in a very open manner, and I would love to have this as a conversation with this. So just to kick off the conversation, I would like to, let's see if we have, can we project the, okay. So this is it. Here's it. This is the first, and then I will command it from here. This is the first question that I ask myself. Everyone knows here in this room and of course in the audience what's happening in the world. So I will try to reflect from a Latin American perspective on certain fundamental questions that I think we have to try to understand, to bring some answers, and to help us thinking through what is going on, because it's very, very grave. It's very difficult. It's extremely, it has a lot of implications. And let me start exactly by that. What are the implications of today? But the question, the main question is globalization possible without some kind of governance? Because that's what we are seeing, a sort of anarchy, suddenly a sort of anarchy in the whole system. But to start with, is this just a trade war, what we are facing? Or is it something much more profound? Is it about trade? Because ultimately, everyone understands that trade is important, but is it only trade? Or it has other implications, particularly for developing countries and particularly for Latin America? And I would say, in order to understand that, I'm going reverse. This is not only about trade. This is about trade, about growth, and therefore about development. This could take hours and hours and perhaps days. But in order to summarize and just to kick off this conversation among all ourselves, I would like to say that we have to remember that trade, in my view at least, trade is a necessary, at this stage of civilization, it's a necessary but insufficient, necessary and insufficient condition for growth. And growth itself, it's also a necessary condition for development. You can have growth without development, but to achieve development, you need economic growth. I think we have enough scientific evidence that this is the kind of circle that we have. Therefore, if we are facing a big structural conflict regarding trade, we necessarily are impacting somehow the growth, the conditions of growth, and therefore the conditions of development. So bear with me that we can take this as I would say, the backdrop of our discussion. This is what is at stake for us. If we don't grow enough, if the world doesn't grow enough, definitely we are conditioning our development. Whether it's sustainable or not, that's a different discussion, but it's development. So again, when we talk about development, we are talking about many things, and we can define development in different dimensions, but at least the very, very minimum that we could think of, it's about combating poverty, and particularly the extreme poverty. And let's think of what has happened. I would say that the average age here in the room, perhaps it's about 20, okay. But I will go a little bit beyond. I will go 34 years back. 34 years back. What was the poverty level in the world? Believe me, it was 37.9, 38% of the population, of world population, were living under extreme poverty line. Okay? And we, as a humanity, as a whole, we were able in the last 34 years to achieve this. It's far from being perfect. There are almost 1 billion people living in extreme poverty. But this is doable. And this is regarding China, but it's regarding the rest of the world. So the broad picture, and certainly I will have throughout the conversation, I'd like to use the wide lens to see the long extensions, to understand what's happening. So to understand what's happening, we can say that we have been able to achieve one of the more modest objectives of development, which is getting rid of extreme poverty. Okay, and that's what has happened in the last 34 years. But if we go a little bit further, we could say from 40% to 8.5%, okay? Of course, this depends on how you measure extreme poverty, et cetera, but I want to have the broad picture. And what has happened? What has happened here? Look, let me see if it's looking this way. Okay, good enough. This is a graph even beyond, from the 19th century, beginning of 19th century. 94% of world population were living in what we would call today extreme poverty. And what has been in 2015, it's 10%. So even with a wider lens, something has happened in the last 200 years that we have been in with a growing population, we have been able to reduce the extreme poverty. This is an optimistic view, of course, but this is absolutely factual. This is what has happened in the last 200 years. So see the number of people living in extreme poverty. This is 220. It raised a little bit during the COVID, but again, we regain the trajectory. This is the number, the absolute number of people living. So particularly since the 70s onwards, something has happened. We have done as a humanity something correct. Not enough, definitely not enough. Not equal throughout all the countries, but something correct we have done. And this is linked to growth, economic growth. And this is connected also, economic growth, it's connected to trade, to international trade. And this is what we will see throughout this conversation. This, again, 1800. In the last, if we take 2023, in the last century, we were able to multiply by 44 the volume of trade among the countries. And this has helped to growth, to economic growth, as a means, as an instrument, not as an end in itself, as a means to bring about more goods, more services, more added value to help not enrich by itself the nations, but to distribute, to offer social services, to bring about development. Okay, so broadly speaking, what we have seen in the last 200 years, it's precisely a boom in international trade as a means, as a necessary, not sufficient, but means for development. Okay, and how this happened? Mainly through these four factors. We have been able to reduce the costs of trade. The natural costs are brought about by geography, and we have been able to develop means of transportation and bring about innovation in the transportation, which we all know, particularly in the last 200 years, which we were able to reduce the costs of transport, meaning shrinking the world, okay? Distance is not so important as in the past. And second, communications. We all know how the price of communications from 30, 40 years back or 100 years back to today's communications, it's almost instant and almost free. Okay, so the costs, the natural costs, were abruptly reduced mainly by innovation, by scientific innovation, technological innovation, improvement in communications and transport. We opened the Panama Canal, don't mention it too much, not to raise some concerns. The Suez Canal, but we also enlarged, we had better ship, we invented the container. The container was a major step forward to improve the time in the ports, in the harbors, and have better transportation system and logistics systems. I love this topic and I can spend weeks about it, so I have to be careful. But the other things, the policy-induced costs, we were able to reduce tariffs, and we were able to somehow, this is very imperfect, manage the so-called non-tariff measures. The barriers that you face, not only the taxes, we were able to reduce it, not as we would like, and particularly not as an Uruguayan would like, because, for example, agricultural taxes, tariffs are extremely high in many countries and in many markets, but we were able to reduce this. Through what? Through cooperation, international cooperation, okay? Very, very, very difficult, very inefficient yet, but yes, international cooperation, and we will see it throughout. So these were the means by which we were able to enlarge trade and therefore chances for development. So what's happening now with the trading system? This is the question. It's not only with the international trading system, it's beyond that. It's the political system as well. As Lourdes was saying, we need to be aware of the educational elements, of the many dimensions, but what about the trading system? And this is the main difficulty and the challenge that we are facing today. Why? But why is this happening? In my view, and this is in no way to, I would say, accept that what is going on, particularly, and I would say, and I would call it by all its names, by Mr. President Trump's policies, what's happening there, it has some backdrop to make it understandable, not acceptable, and not to legitimize, in my own view, what is happening, but to understand the reasons behind it. Because if we don't understand what's happening behind the visuals, the directly readable titles in the newspapers, we won't be able to address the real problems behind this. And the number one problem, or I wouldn't say problem, the number one element of this context that has changed is that the center of gravity, of economic gravity, has rapidly changed to Eastern Asia, and particularly China, but not only China. Here we have a concentration of half of the population is here. And this population, it's much more educated, it's much well advanced, it's much more innovative than in the past. And that is a challenging element, particularly to the hegemony that we had in the past from the United States, which is understandable. And this we have seen in history is what is known as the biggest, one of the biggest challenges, and it has been also a reflection of theory and analysis, and we will go into that in a minute. So one, the rapid tilt. So it's not only that it changed the geographical center, but the rapidly. You see here, 500 years to move from here. From, I would say, broadly, Middle East or past Middle East to the center of Europe, not needless to say, it happened in 400 years. This movement in terms of, this is a representation of center of gravity, economic gravity, but beyond the geographical element, we have to remember the time. So time is shortening. Everything is happening suddenly in short periods, and rapid tectonic changes like this have consequences. Second element, in my view, the rapid change in the structure of world economic power. This is China. This is China. In 2009, the first car manufacturer. In 2011, first industrial manufacturer, first importer-exporter, even first economy, if you measure it by purchasing power parity. Second economy, depending on how you measure it. But first, in 2014, 10 years ago already, larger middle class in the world, larger number of billionaires in 2016, already passed, long time ago. This is a rapid change that should be borne in mind. So in my view, there is an hegemonic challenge and competition for technological leadership by, this is very important, by a different civilizational, political, and economic power. Because this kind of challenge to hegemony we have seen in the past. But it had another element. It was between Western powers, Germany defying the power of United Kingdom in the beginning of the 20th century, but still within the European universe. In 1970s and 80s, Japan was seen, particularly by the United States, as the biggest challenge, okay? But still under the same umbrella, political umbrella. It was a Western sort of democratic model and a capitalistic country. Now, in the case of China, it's different in these terms, and in these terms. So the challenging element, it's different in qualitative terms. And it bears. I'm not delegitimizing anything of this, but what I'm saying, it's a challenging factor. That's it. Geopolitical, I mean, needless to speak about this. We can speak thousands of times. NATO rethinking, Brexit, one road, one China seen as a challenge. Brazil even thinking about joining or not joining the One Belt, One Road China. The expansion of influence of Russia, clashes East-West Europe, and naval bases of China, some examples of line grabbing, at least this is what it's been claimed, and rethinking. This is what we are presently seeing in Latin America, and in the Americas, I would say, a big rethinking, geopolitical thinking. And I won't go into the details because we all know what we are talking about when we speak about Canada, Greenland, or Panama, or whatever. So these are the tensions. And this is an expression of tectonic movements behind it. The third, this is, in my view, this is what has been happening, particularly since the financial crisis, the bank crisis, and then turned into financial crisis, then to economic crisis, and then to a pure, even social crisis, which is the resurgence of economic nationalism and anti-globalization, from left or from right. And why this? Because the fragile economic growth, particularly in the developed countries, so the growth was very fragile, very, I would say, little throughout the last decades. Significant inequalities, and tensions, social tensions in the societies between countries, but inside even developed countries. So these tensions tend to help also bring about in my view, ultranationalism and political polarization. Low productivity growth, disruptive technologies, needless to say, no? Disruptive technologies. So innovation, the pure discovery of technologies bring about tensions, social tensions. But the point is climate change and demographic change as well. I won't get into too much into that. The point is that the policies, the responses, the answer are being incorrect because they are mostly emotional, less rational. So narratives are changed, simplified for political purposes, and therefore wrong policies, in my own opinion, wrong policies. Mercantilism and protectionism. These are the two gentlemen, Smooth and Holy, senators that in 1930 provoked the rise of tariffs that, in my own view, were another element to bring about even Second World War. Protectionism, to protect with high tariffs the agriculture, the farmers in the United States, that brought about a change reaction in the whole world. Mercantilism, I won't go into more details, but, and also social reactionary positions. This is neo-Ludism, the Ludist movement that we had in France against the los telares, help me, somebody help me, the knitting machinery, mechanized, broken in the 18th century against industrial revolution. That sort of reaction, and also the reaction against institutions, no WTO, etc., sort of being anti-cooperative movements. Very quickly, let's move on. And all this had an impact on trade. But when we speak about trade, we mix trade policy, and international trading system. These are two, remember very well, these are three different things. What trade policy, and international trading system. What, as a consequence of all the previous things, what we had was a negative narrative regarding trade. Trade is bad. No, trade is what brought, among other things, what brought economic growth and what helped precisely moving forward from extreme poverty. But the wrong narrative was built throughout because of these reasons and this context that I'm pointing out. Tariffs, trade policy, tariffs are needed, non-tariff measures, barriers are needed. No? And even competitive devaluation, which we will be seeing soon, unfortunately. And most importantly, regarding the international trading system, what we are seeing is unilateralism. I don't care about the accords, the agreements that we have, but my measure is this, and I will impose tariffs and I will impose barriers. This is about talking about a world way away and distant from the Kantian world of perpetual peace. I have 3 minutes to conclude. So let's move quickly. Because this is what I wanted to sort of finish here. This is the percentage of exports by GNP from 1827 to 2023. This means that trade, that exports have been more and more and more important for the economy. Okay, this is what happened. Now see this. This was brought about by trade policies, trade measures that were taken during this period, were taken unilaterally. For example, the United States decided to reduce, open up, or the United Kingdom at a certain point. But they were reversed at a certain point. That's why you have all these ups and downs, because since they were unilateral, these trade policies could be reversed at any time. Or there were agreements, but these were agreements, bilateral agreements. What I give to you, I wouldn't give to him or to her. I could sort of extract myself, my country, from those agreements quite easily, because this was, again, unilateral or bilateral. The great achievement after the Second World War was this, the beginning of multilateralism. So the compromises, the agreements were among all, with very unfavorable, very asymmetric elements indeed, but it was agreed, maintained between all us. So cooperation was stimulated by the fact that we were all part of a system, of a similar system. Imperfect, but that started to help bringing about a great growth of trade, of exports, and of growth. And that's precisely what accelerated after 1995 with the establishment of WTO, which is what I call reinforced multilateralism with stronger rules. And this is precisely, and this is, by this I will end, this is precisely the danger we have today, because we are extracting ourselves from a reinforced multilateralism, pro-cooperation among the countries, phase in humanity. We are getting very quickly into this world. And remember what happened here, 1913. Why I chose 1913. This was the verge of the First World War, the first challenging of Germany to the United Kingdom. This was the kind of reaction that we had, because once you trigger, once you start a process like this, uncooperative, you could get into very big troubles. Among other things, not only on trade, but on peace and also other economic elements, until and a big crisis that you can reach. This is what the lesson of history teaches, into this kind of situation. So my view is that we have to do absolutely everything to defend multilateralism and stay ourselves around this era. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. Now it's my pleasure to introduce again Ambassador from the Republic of Cape Verde, His Excellence Mr. José Pedro Máximo Chantre de Oliveira. He holds a master's degree in sustainable tourism, from the University of Las Palmas de Gran Canaria, Spain, and has a background in hotel and tourism management from the School of Hospitality and Tourism of Portugal. Ambassador Chantre has worked as a professor and an entrepreneur in the tourism sector, as well as a consultant for foreign investments. In the political arena, he stood out as an active member in the process of Cape Verde's national independence process between 71 and 75, and 15 years later, in the country's transition to a multi-party political system, which led to the adoption of the current constitution, which was approved in September 92. He was also a member of the National Directorate of the Movement for Democracy, MPD, and served as a national deputy. He's also held the positions of President of the National Convention and Chair of the National Directorate of the MPD, which is still one of the Cape Verde's main political parties. Last but not least, in civil society, Mr. Ambassador, he's a co-founder of several national level sports, cultural and social associations, and has written 3 books. And since October 2020, he has been serving as ambassador of the Republic of Cape Verde in Brasilia. So let's welcome again Ambassador José Pedro Máximo de Chantre de Oliveira. The floor is yours.
Ladies and gentlemen, with your permission, I will speak in Portuguese because that is where I feel completely at ease. In English, it could be very hard for me, and I wish, sincerely, I wish to interact with you. It's possible in Portuguese, in French, or in Italian, but it will be in Portuguese. Before beginning, I would like to congratulate my colleague and brother, Ambassador Guillermo, for his excellent presentation. Congratulations. Bem, então vamos ao português. Para cumprimentar, boa noite a todos e a todas. Gostaria de cumprimentar o presidente, que não está cá, mas que nos deu muita simpatia esta tarde. Cumprimentar os colegas embaixadores aqui na mesa, as professoras, os alunos, cumprimentar os cônsulos de Cabo Verde e do Uruguai aqui presentes, a embaixadora, embaixadora honorária, jornalista Joyce Ribeiro, aqui de Cidade Velha, brasileira, mas representando a Cidade Velha de Cabo Verde. Uma boa noite a todos, espero bem interagir convosco em português e que tenhamos razões para boas perguntas. Também gostaria de começar por agradecer à organização do seminário esta oportunidade de trazer uma modesta opinião que espero sirva para somar às demais e nos leve a interessar cada vez mais por esta temática global que vem desde os primórdios e a cada dia nos traz mais equações para o futuro. Falar do sistema internacional numa perspectiva, eu vou falar numa perspectiva de África, tenho aqui o latino-americano, mas há muitos pontos que se tocam. E para falar na perspectiva de África, os senhores vão me permitir falar de África, porque na parte final da minha fala eu trarei por escrito uma perspectiva africana que é felizmente homogénea no continente africano através da União Africana. Eu gostaria de falar de África sobretudo para os jovens que estão aqui à minha frente. Eu gostaria de falar de África porque eu conheço duas Áfricas. Mas fora de África, há uma África muito pequenina, muito pequena, até no mapa parecia mais pequena do que na realidade. Que começou com a chegada dos europeus no século XV, os navegadores europeus. Mas não é dessa África que eu gostaria de falar. Mas é essa África pequenina que o mundo conhece, que foi forjado pelo sistema internacional durante os milénios e os últimos séculos. Essa imagem de inferioridade e de menoridade que o sistema internacional colou à África é que eu, enquanto africano, eu tenho por obrigação tentar ajudar a desconstruir. Portanto, eu proponho falar da África Grande. Da África Grande que existiu na antiguidade, que era a detentora dos conhecimentos, das primeiras universidades do mundo, que era, eu diria, o farol do mundo até o século I, II da nossa era. Esses conhecimentos foram, eu não digo que foram roubados à África, não, foram roubados à humanidade. Porque o conhecimento é universal. E a África, nessa altura, produziu tanto conhecimento. Desapareceu. Grande património imaterial, hoje em dia, hoje em que nós estamos a falar, estão noutros continentes. Então é dessa África que eu pretendo falar, que no século I e II da nossa era, da era cristã, começaram a descer os árabes da Arábia, começaram aí o negócio dos escravos para o Oriente, que muitos reduzem, porque todo o sistema internacional em qualquer época do nosso tempo, e também desde a antiguidade, tem a tendência reducionista da África, de reduzir a África. Então, quando nós dizemos a África passou a menor, passou a ser subjugada depois que os europeus chegaram, no século XV. É um pedacinho de verdade, mas não é verdade. Os grandes reinos da África, que dominavam o mundo mesmo na parte económica, um dos recursos que eles tinham, que se transformava em riqueza, era exatamente o comércio de escravos com os intermediários árabes para o Oriente. Até que no século VII da nossa era, toda aquela faixa onde havia maior implantação de conhecimentos, que ia desde a Etiópia, o Egito e todo o Maghreb, foi ocupado por uma outra civilização e que deu cabo das grandes civilizações antigas. Isto no século VII da nossa era. Só 9 séculos depois é que chegaram os europeus, que fizeram a sua parte, que todos nós conhecemos e que não é preciso repetir aqui. Portanto, eu desculpem, mas eu estou habituado a falar dessa África grande da antiguidade e dessa África grande do presente e da África grande que está preparada para o futuro. Quando nós falamos da África grande do passado, que eu já mencionei a parte dos conhecimentos, mas nós podemos falar da África grande de hoje, que tem uma população de 1 bilhão 560 milhões de habitantes. 1 bilhão 560 milhões de habitantes. E não tem um representante no Conselho Permanente das Nações Unidas. Não tem um. A França tem 68 milhões de habitantes. O Reino Unido tem mais ou menos isso. E os 5 que comandam o sistema são a França, o Reino Unido, os Estados Unidos, a Rússia e a China. Portanto, este é o sistema que nós temos implantado no mundo atual. É claro que as coisas não podem ir bem. Mas nós estamos a falar de uma África grande que nos últimos 2 séculos, do século XIX ao século XXI, essa África, no século XIX, nos meados do século XIX, essa África tinha menos população do que a Europa. No século XIX, a África tinha mais ou menos 110 milhões de habitantes e a Europa 190 milhões. Para ver a capacidade dessa África de hoje que eu estou a falar, em 2 séculos, a população cresceu 1.300%. Foi multiplicada por 13 vezes, enquanto a Europa cresceu 400%. Foi multiplicada por 4 vezes. E nós perguntaríamos, e para onde é que vai essa África? Vai continuar a crescer assim? Eu devo tranquilizar a todos que me ouvem que a África, mesmo com 1,5 bilhão de habitantes, tem uma densidade populacional metade da Europa. A Europa tem uma densidade populacional de 73 habitantes por quilómetro quadrado. A África tem 36 habitantes por quilómetro quadrado. Portanto, pode crescer à vontade. Ainda se crescer o dobro, vai aproximar-se da densidade populacional da Europa. Mas nós queremos criar, os africanos querem criar uma vida digna dentro de um sistema mundial que tenha equilíbrio e que tenha justiça. Erradamente, eu leio aqui algumas passagens, erradamente, a África continua sendo vista como sinónimo de guerras e conflitos, de desastres e de doenças, de tudo o que é negativo. A sua dimensão para o sistema mundial, a sua dimensão em todas as vertentes é reduzida, propositadamente. E que eles dizem legalmente. Todavia, a cooperação diplomática internacional tem reconhecido uma nova África, essa de que eu gosto de falar, que vem contribuindo para o avanço do mundo e a nova relação entre as nações. Ora, vejamos, a COP27 de 2022, essa COP que este ano teremos o prazer de assistir aqui no Brasil, a maior conferência das Nações Unidas sobre mudanças climáticas, realizou-se, portanto, em 22, em África, no Egito. A reunião dos BRICS de 2023, em agosto, aconteceu na África do Sul. Em África também. A reunião anual do FMI e do Banco Mundial de 23 foi em Marrocos, em África. Portanto, eu digo, é preciso relevar esta nova África, cuja juventude empreendedora está surpreendendo o mundo com a capacidade interventiva das suas startups em todos os domínios e levar o status da África na cena internacional de acordo com o que realmente representa no mundo e para o mundo. É neste ponto que eu agradeceria a vossa especial atenção, porque estamos atravessando mundialmente momentos críticos e de incertezas. Mas que podem ser de oportunidades para regiões tradicionalmente periféricas. Quando nós mexermos com o sistema mundial, eu penso que a África corre o bom risco de sair ganhando. Porque pior para a África, pior não pode ser. A África que deverá se posicionar na participação das principais instituições globais do sistema internacional, através do que já foi citado aqui, do multilateralismo baseado em regras, onde todas as vozes tenham peso equitativo e equilibrando o poder nas estruturas multilaterais, onde países do norte global mantêm a eterna influência desproporcional. Valorizar internamente na África, valorizar soluções africanas para problemas africanos, através de iniciativas regionais lideradas pela sempre União Africana e o envolvimento de organizações subregionais como a CEDEAO, onde o meu país se posiciona, que é a Comunidade Económica da África Ocidental, a SADC, que é do Sul, Botswana é da SADC, não é? A IGAD. Bem, isso para falar de internamente. Mas há também posições africanas, e aí é que eu digo que se tocam com a América Latina, que anteriormente essas posições eram impensáveis de serem tomadas. Eu estou querendo chegar às opacas. As opacas, que é um fórum que existe desde 1986, por uma iniciativa nas Nações Unidas, do Brasil, subscrita pelo Brasil e pela Nigéria nessa altura, que são os dois colossos populacionais do lado de lá e do lado de cá, do Atlântico. Porque às vezes nós falamos aqui no continente americano, nós falamos da África, nós pensamos que é uma coisa longínqua, algo muito longe, porque é mítica. Não, está aqui ao lado. Um voo do Nordeste brasileiro até o meu país, Cabo Verde, que é a parte mais ocidental de África, é um voo de 3h30, 3. Estamos aqui ao lado. Mas eu dizia que eu ia falar das opacas, esse fórum que inclui os 3 países latino-americanos que são banhados pelo Atlântico, o Brasil, Uruguai e a Argentina, mais 21 países do lado africano, são 24 países. As opacas é a zona de paz e cooperação do Atlântico Sul. E qual é o objetivo das opacas? É dar um sinal para o norte que o sul tem capacidade para resolver os seus problemas. E criar uma zona em que as transações comerciais se possam fazer em plena paz. Nós não precisamos que o Norte venha criar paz no Sul. O Sul tem as suas capacidades próprias, isopacas. É um fórum. Já agora eu vos informo que a última reunião foi há 2 anos, foi em 23, em abril de 23, na ilha de São Vicente, em Cabo Verde. E no próximo ano, em 2026, será provavelmente no Rio de Janeiro, aqui no Brasil, porque tanto o Brasil quanto os outros 2 países da América do Sul, quanto os 21 países africanos estão cientes da utilidade e da importância das opacas. Mais uma vez, quando as opacas foi aventada pelo Brasil e pela Nigéria, houve um país que se coloca sempre como o cabo-chefe do mundo, que esteve contra a criação das opacas. No entanto, a geopolítica mundial está recebendo uma reviravolta incrível e essa mesma superpotência, hoje em dia, já se diz a favor do desenvolvimento das opacas. Portanto, isto eu queria mostrar-vos que, para além do multilateralismo, para além da parte interna dentro daquele grande continente que é a África, para além disso, tem essa capacidade de interagir com os irmãos latino-americanos e os 2 juntos se impor no novo mundo que há de sair desta confusão total. Mas nós teremos que acreditar em África e acreditar na América Latina. Há mais ou menos uma semana eu recebi um convite para uma conferência em Salvador, da Bahia, que dizia, eu normalmente quando leio essas coisas eu acho interessante, que dizia, com a curadoria brasileira, francesa e africana. Em que é que ficamos? Ficamos naquela África menor, naquela África que é vista como um país. Olha, o músico brasileiro, uruguai, está se internacionalizando. Ele atuou na Bélgica, na Holanda e em África. Portanto, está a ver. Nós estamos a falar de um continente com 54 países independentes, mais 7 territórios. É esta África que pretende ser parceira da América Latina para uma nova ordem mundial. 54 países, mas nós continuamos confundindo e tratando a África como se fosse um território homogéneo que está longe do continente americano. Está aqui ao lado. Daqui de São Paulo para Nova York, qual é o número de horas de voo? 9 horas. Você pega um voo em Cape Town, um voo direto, voando o território africano, até Cairo, 12 horas e meia. Esta é a África. Esta é a África de que eu gosto de falar e que eu gosto de chamar a atenção, sobretudo dos jovens, porque esta África vai continuar a crescer. E esta África tem por onde crescer. Ficou muitos séculos parado e tem muito por onde crescer. Não se pode As minhas desculpas por citar nomes de países de vez em quando, mas eu tenho que citar porque faz parte do conteúdo e o Conselho de Segurança das Nações Unidas é o que é. Portanto, 2 minutos, tenho que apressar. A França, com 68 milhões de habitantes, não pode continuar dando cartas nem a França, nem o Reino Unido, nem os outros para tanta gente no mundo. A França cabe 22 vezes e meia dentro da África. 22 vezes e meia. Bem, o continente busca um sistema internacional, eu passo a passar rapidamente, 2 minutos ou 1 minuto e meio. O continente busca um sistema internacional mais inclusivo, onde as suas prioridades, como o desenvolvimento sustentável, a industrialização, a segurança alimentar e a justiça climática, não sejam subordinadas aos interesses das grandes potências. Além disso, a África defende um sistema comercial que respeite o direito ao desenvolvimento, incluindo o reconhecimento de tratamentos especiais e diferenciados para países menos desenvolvidos e a proteção de políticas industriais estratégicas. A Zona de Comércio Livre Continental Africana surge nesse contexto como uma resposta africana à fragmentação do sistema comercial global, que é o que nós assistimos atualmente, tentando criar um mercado interno robusto e integrado e menos dependente de fatores externos. Que fique claro, porque eu estou terminando, uma das maiores fragilidades do sistema internacional na perspectiva africana e provavelmente da América Latina é a injustiça na representatividade. Eu acredito nesta juventude que está aqui à minha frente, esta juventude latino-americana. Eu acredito nela, assim como acredito na juventude africana. Façam o favor de se juntarem, de se aproximarem, porque vós sereis o futuro. Muito obrigado.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. Now it's my turn to introduce Her Excellency, the Ambassador of the Republic of Botswana, Madame Benetia Chingapane. She is the ambassador in Brazil, and I will very briefly to introduce her to you, the audience. And she has a Bachelor in Arts and International Relations and French from Knox College, Galesburg in Illinois, the United States of America. And she has a postgraduate degree in European Program in International Economic Law, Institute of European Studies, Université Libre de Bruxelles. She has served as a diplomatic officer first in Brussels, as third secretary, second secretary, and first secretary. Then she was also counselor in the Botswana Embassy in Brussels, and then assistant director, public relations and research information, Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Botswana. And she has served also in Ethiopia as a minister counsel of Botswana Embassy Permanent Mission in Addis Ababa. Chargé d'Affaires Botswana Embassy Permanent Mission Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, the same, and ambassador in Addis Ababa. So she has moved from the counselor to ambassador in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, and then she was the Deputy Director Asian Pacific division in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Botswana, Director of Multilateral Affairs and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Botswana, and then Chief of Protocol at the Department of Protocol and Consular Services at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Botswana. And nowadays she is our ambassador. She is the ambassador here in Brazil. Madam, the floor is yours. Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you, FAAP, for inviting us. I think I'm going to be summarizing what my two colleagues have said because, you know, being the last speaker, you always, in Botswana, we have a saying, which means they've taken all my words. So I don't know, but I'll still say what I had to say because at the end of the day, I think Latin America and Africa, we have so many commonalities. And I heard my Portuguese is very little, pequeno, but I think I heard what some of what my colleague was saying, and he was talking about how Africa has a population of 1 billion and something, I don't know. My country, Botswana, I don't know how many of you know Botswana, but it's a very small country, small in population, but large enough in size. I think it's the size of Patos de Minas. Why is it Minas Gerais? Sorry, not Patos. Minas Gerais, sorry, but we are a population of 2.4 million. So you can imagine, I think in Brasilia, I probably should be feeling like the whole of Botswana, but anyway. So I'm very happy. I hope you're all still awake. Are you awake? All right, okay. I will read. I'm not a professor, so I cannot speak off the cuff and stuff. So I'm going to read my statement. I'm so grateful to be here today. The timing of this seminar is highly relevant as it comes on the backdrop of a troubled and changing world where the era of rule-based globalization and free trade appears to be waning, negatively affecting the global order familiar to most of us, where the interests of developing states were considered and protected. While protectionism in the short term might be ideal in protecting a country's economic interest, it is, in the long term, not ideal for free trade, stability of the global order, and a multilateral system where countries can achieve mutually beneficial results through trade negotiations. Policy decisions that increase the cost of cross-border or international trade between countries risk hurting consumers through higher prices, particularly the poor. The existing global order is predominantly run by rich and powerful countries at the expense of the less developed countries, which are mostly found in the global south. This dominance extends beyond issues of trade, security, and defense. In dealing with the current international system, Africa's relations with Latin America should therefore be anchored on developing a robust partnership that will bring the two closer together on equal footing for their mutual benefit. What Africa needs is a more equitable global order that does not compromise her national sovereignty, territorial integrity, and autonomy in decision-making, but embraces and acknowledges the need for her active participation and co-ownership in building a world that is united, prosperous, and peaceful, taking into consideration the need for African solutions to African problems. I think I heard you talking about that. While at the same time amplifying her voice on the global agenda. Dear colleagues, distinguished guests, Botswana is part of the rising Africa whose countries are committed to the idea of building strategic partnerships that will promote trade and investment, defense and security cooperation, educational and cultural exchanges, technical cooperation in various areas such as agriculture, health, renewable energies, gender equality, and women empowerment, including the promotion and protection of human rights. In this regard, the need for strengthening South-South cooperation cannot be overemphasized in addressing the unique challenges and maximizing on opportunities of the Global South in order to achieve sustainable development goals and economic prosperity. By sharing best practices in various social and economic fields, developing countries have the potential to develop innovative solutions to address their common challenges. Whilst Botswana is characterized as an upper middle income country, the bottom line is that she's still developing. And as a developing country, we are determined to work with Brazil and other Latin American countries, such as Uruguay, in promoting an agenda that is inclusive in the attainment of economic and social development, including the full realization of the human and people's rights in Africa and beyond. What inspires this quest for collaboration is the full realization that the two continents share similar socio-economic challenges, which can be overcome through cooperation and collaboration. Economic development and diversification remain a key priority for African countries to help them navigate away from their dependence on raw materials and foreign aid. The raw extraction of minerals without beneficiation has deprived most developing countries of an opportunity to fully realize the economic benefits of their mineral wealth. Let me give you an example with diamonds. I think you're aware that Botswana is the biggest diamond producer by value and the second by volume. In Southern Africa alone, in SADC, of the top 10 countries in the diamond producing world, there's Botswana, Angola, DRC, South Africa, Namibia, Lesotho, and Zimbabwe. We're talking about 7 countries, and yet none of us control the world diamond trade. How is that possible? We control the world distribution, but not the resources or the wealth that comes from owning that mineral wealth. So it's high time that we, as those countries, make it felt that we belong. These are ours, and we should be able to control that. So Botswana, I think, is the best example to consider in how it has been able to transform its mineral sector, especially the diamonds, for the full benefit of its people. I mean, we're not perfect, but I think we've been able to, at least to a good extent, try. I think we're the only African country or the only developing country that has a 50-50 partnership ownership with De Beers. Botswana, the government owns 50% and De Beers owns 50%. So the company is called Botswana. Most of the African countries own like 8%, or it's just a very small amount of what is actually extracted from their country. We are ready to share best practices in the management of natural resources, negotiations of sales agreement, beneficiation, and value chains around diamond cutting and polishing, as well as mining legislation. Our story of Diamonds for Development emphasizes the positive impact diamonds has had on our economy and citizens. I think if you go and read, you'll be amazed at what we've achieved in the 56 years that we've been independent. I therefore invite you to take interest in this story for your full appreciation. It is not perfect, as there's a lot of room for improvement, but it serves as a source of inspiration. While provision of aid without conditions to developing countries is appreciated, it has nonetheless been unable to assist recipients in their development agenda. Instead, it has encouraged dependency, stagnant growth, and to a certain extent, corruption. To close this gap, developing countries need to work together by promoting trade amongst themselves through South-South cooperation. In addition, they must emphasize promotion of trade instead of aid in dealing with developed countries. I think we know the saying, what is it? You can teach a man how to fish, or you can give him fish. And something to that effect, where if you give me fish or bread, I'll eat today, but tomorrow I'll be hungry. But if you teach me how to fish, I'll be able to take care of myself moving on into the future. So this is what we want as developing countries. Ladies and gentlemen, we are confident that through BRICS, other regional initiatives as Mercosur, global initiatives like the G20, Brazil can work together with African countries to promote regional integration. And I'm talking about regional integration in terms of Latin America and Africa, not just SADC, or we can work together as developing countries. Brazil can work together with African countries to promote regional integration, economic and political cooperation, and draw upon initiatives that will address the need of the African continent, such as creating jobs, especially for the youth, provision of universal health coverage, mitigating the impact of climate change, and ending hunger and illiteracy, amongst others. I think if you're educated, it's the best heritage that you can ever have, because nobody can uneducate you. You can only move forward when you are educated. On the other hand, utilization of regional organizations, such as the African Union, can be used to work together with Brazil and other Latin American countries to reform international institutions such as the World Trade Organization, I think you mentioned those, the United Nations, the Bretton Woods institutions of the International Monetary Fund, and the World Bank, with the aim of ensuring that the South is not left behind when critical decisions are made on the global stage. I think we know the WTO and the blue rooms, and was it the green rooms, and all those green rooms where decisions are taken, and it's only the few and the powerful who actually take part in that. And then all those decisions affect everybody at the end of the day. Agriculture plays a central and important role in our economy, especially for rural dwellers. It is a social and economic lifeline for the majority of our people, contributing to food security and opening up opportunities for the supply of raw materials, agro-processing, and value chain addition. At one point in our history in Botswana, we were often referred to as that country with more cows than people. I think Uruguay also had that, if I'm not mistaken. Yes. Yes, I think it was 1 to 3, 3 cows to 1 person. Whilst the situation has changed now. It has changed, and it's the opposite way, but cattle farming remains one of the key areas in our agricultural policy. I actually sometimes tease my colleagues and say that Botswana beef is better than Uruguayan and Brazilian beef. Come to Botswana and try it. I mean, I will bring the meat. Like most developing countries, Botswana is faced with challenges associated with climate change in the agriculture sector. Poor and unreliable rainfall, extreme heat and cold spells that have made it difficult for our farmers to produce sufficient food, both for domestic consumption and export. This is where the Brazilian Agricultural Research Corporations and others like it, technical assistance, is pivotal in improving crop yields and increasing the quality and quantity of both cattle and small stock in Botswana. Such assistance will go a long way in helping Botswana to meet the duty and quota-free market of her beef export to, for example, the European Union and other possible markets. I think Brazil, for one thing I respect Brazil for, is that they're very clear in their policies in terms of assistance that they give or work with. They do not give money, but technical assistance is something that they willingly do, and they do it very well, and they're very good at what they do. So this is something that we can harness on as developing countries and work to and be able to exchange information and know-how. The government of Botswana seeks closer collaboration and partnership with the government of Brazil. This decision is informed by the inspiring story of Brazil's transformation from a food importer in the 1960s to a modern-day major exporter of agricultural products such as soya beans and sugar, to mention just a few. Brazil's investment in research and development has seen the country coming up with leading innovative technology in various fields such as education, health, and agriculture, and increasing the country's global competitiveness and reaping major benefits for its people and economy. As a result, Botswana does not only seek collaboration and partnership in agriculture, but in many other areas such as education, information technology, information communication and technology, health, infrastructure, development, renewable energy, sports, arts, and cultural exchanges for our nation's sustainable development. This quest for collaboration and cooperation with Brazil highlights our commitment in growing South-South cooperation and deepening and strengthening our relations with Latin American countries. In these volatile and unpredictable times, there's an urgent and absolute need for countries in the global South to strengthen partnerships and cooperation as like-minded partners to mitigate the risks created by the growing protectionism and disregard of the multilateral trading order. Gone are the days when we should look to our former colonial masters for handouts and assistance. We should be able to stand on a level playing field with all nations. The world is evolving, and developed countries are not as quick to give out development aid as they were 40 plus decades ago. With Africa and Latin America working together, the future can only be bright. Muito obrigada, muchas gracias. Que aleboja, thank you.
Yes, we have to thank you, Ambassador, for wonderful remarks and speech, and maybe we can open this time, right, Vinicius, for questions or remarks from the audience. I have some comments from those who are online. About Embaixador de Cabo Verde. They are saying that excellent reflections, bringing the ancestrality as a base of what we have today. And another remarks about the Embaixador José de Oliveira. Parabéns, embaixador, sempre por ser lembrado da África, é continente que a África é uma potência. To reminding about Africa as a, a continent of the future, right? Questions, remarks? Yes, yes.
Inicialmente, gostaria de parabenizar a nossa... Opa. Muito boa noite. Inicialmente, gostaria de parabenizar a nossa FAAP por promover um evento tão significativo e trazer suas excelências, os embaixadores, para debater esse importante tema. Embaixador, eu gostaria de dar uma contribuição e sugerindo o seguinte: o continente africano hoje ele tem 54 países membros, correto? Hoje nós temos aí o Elon Musk como sul-africano, que representa hoje como o homem mais poderoso do mundo financeiramente. Ele poderia ser um grande protagonista em desenvolver potencialmente a África com ações estratégicas, até pela credibilidade que ele detém hoje no mundo e principalmente na Casa Branca. Então, minha sugestão, se os 54 países que integram o continente africano desenvolver, juntamente a ele, ações estratégicas no campo de tecnologia, no campo de turismo, a África tem um potencial em petróleo. Então, eu acredito que vocês dariam um grande impulsionamento, porque realmente o continente africano, a nação africana, é muito importante para o mundo. Eu aplaudo, acredito e que o que nós pudermos estar contribuindo com esse impulsionamento, o meu instituto está à inteira disposição. Então, essa é a minha humilde colaboração e sugestão para que vocês, como embaixadores que representam os presidentes de seus países, possam, num fórum de discussão, sugerir essa oportunidade. Meu muito obrigado.
Se querem comentar, if you want to comment on the remarks, yes. Comenta aí.
Como é que o senhor se chama? Josué.
Brasileiro.
Muito.
Josué Ferreira, presidente do Instituto de Estudos Legislativos Brasileiro.
Senhor Josué, muito, muito grato pela sua participação aqui. Juntos pensaremos o mundo. Fracionados, não pensaremos o mundo. E o senhor dá uma ideia grande, mas o exemplo que dá, não sei se o Elon Musk estaria
Se ele
interessado.
quer, né? If he wants to help Africa.
Yes.
That's the first question. Sorry.
Eu não sei também se a África precisa de gente que saiu da África e que dá as costas ao desenvolvimento. Mas não é só o Sr. Elon Musk. Nós temos exemplos de africanos que às vezes até criam riquezas em África e colocam a favor do desenvolvimento de países no exterior. Então, é essa parte que eu quis, desculpe, mas é só para terminar esse comentário, essa parte é que eu quis deixar bem patente, que nós precisamos de uma África que crie riqueza endógena, mas tem que começar a sentir orgulho, assim como o latino-americano. Há muitos da América Latina que produzem riquezas, mesmo na América Latina, e colocam para o norte, para o desenvolvimento do norte. Temos que virar isto. Não diria ao contrário, mas temos que pôr na posição certa. Estou totalmente de acordo e grato com a pertinência da sua colocação, mas eu, se fosse eu não indicaria Elon Musk ou os seus parceiros. Muito obrigado.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. Any other comment from the table? Yes, I move here. Before moving to the next question, I just wanted to say I think it's aligned to the things you have mentioned is why we created here a FAAP, a postgraduate program in regional studies, and especially starting from Latin America, because we have all over the world, we have institutes studying Latin America, but we Latin Americans, we don't study ourselves. So the idea of having regional studies and study ourselves is because we need to, see our perspectives combined with everyone's perspectives from different parts of the world, but starting from our perspective, of our own region. You don't have too many centers for Latin American studies in Latin America, just a few. And you have plenty of centers studying Latin America in Europe and the United States. And maybe it's the same in Africa. How many African centers do we have studying the African region? Maybe not too many. Maybe we need more discussions like this. Going to the next question.
Good evening. First, I would like to thank you, all ambassadors. It's such an honor to be here as an international relations student. Ambassador Guillermo mentioned the Belt and Road Initiative, and since all three countries are involved, I would like to know what benefits they have experienced so far, as well as the challenge they might face, particularly now with the recent economic tariffs imposed by the United States and the ongoing war trade. Do you see it as a possibility for countries to reduce or even escape American influence, while also strengthening, oh, sorry, that's a little bit difficult for me to say, strengthening relations within the Global South? Thank you.
Ambassador?
I will probably take about a week to
Yes,
answer this question. It's a lovely question, but I'm very talkative, and so I will try to summarize. First of all, our experience, it's rather recent, different to the implementation of the Belt and Road Initiative in other regions of the world. So I would say, yes, Uruguay has been partner of this initiative since a few years ago. And to be honest, I haven't seen any direct project as I have seen in other parts of the world. These are mainly related to financing and technical support for infrastructure projects. And in that sense, I think it has a great, great future. This is one of the things that we really need among ourselves to start with in Latin America. Take the example of what has happened with this new port in Peru, built and promoted, built, and invested by China. And I ask myself, why was it, and nobody can blame China, on the contrary, I would say, well done, good to welcome this kind of investment in Latin America. But why wasn't it that this was built, particularly for those who criticize this, why wasn't it built say, by Brazil or by any other Latin America or any other American in the continent. So these are the questions, and I think we should welcome these initiatives from China, so to mobilize the conscience of what we need to do, particularly in the area of infrastructure to integrate us more. This is being changed. This view has, I think, challenged also decisions even within Brazil. I have seen, for example, Minister Tevet from the Budgetary and Planning Ministry to be a real leader in terms of bi-oceanic, as rutas bioceánicas. These are things that are a must. I think for a long time, and as a supposed to be a trade expert and trade policy expert, I think that we have put a little bit too much in the center of the picture, just trade policy, which is extremely important. But what about infrastructure? And this is what the Belt and Road, the very idea of a Belt and Road, is bringing to the table. And we should think about what China has done in these terms at the national level, at the continental level, in Southeast Asia and elsewhere. Isn't it this the real integration that we need? And I think we had some weeks ago, or a couple of weeks ago, the Secretariat for Latin America and the Caribbean from Itamaraty here. She has been precisely one of the leaders within the Itamaraty to discuss these questions about infrastructure. And nobody would claim that this is ideological, left, right, or whatever. This is what we need. We need better infrastructure. We have to focus perhaps a little bit less in terms of the rhetoric and the ideologies and come to tangible things, concrete things. How we have to do. The ambassador of Cabo Verde was referring distances. The narratives are completely different from reality. 3 hours away, it's much closer to Cabo Verde than to Buenos Aires or Montevideo. So, in a word, what we have to do is to sort of focus in very tangible things and let a little bit aside what divides us more. And this is one of the things that China is bringing to the table. Focus on real, tangible things that will bring about development. Sorry to be a little bit too long.
No, thank you very much, Ambassador. Just to add something to your comments, I think in the African continent, we have more examples of Belt and Road Initiative rather than in Latin America. I think China has done more in African countries, joining the initiative, Belt and Road Initiative, rather than those countries in Latin America. I don't see Latin America this moving on fast. Only the Peruvian case and so forth. Do you want to comment on this, ambassadors? No? Other questions or comments to finalize? Yes, I have to, yes, let's go to China with our Chinese director of the Business Confucius Institute.
Hello, everyone. First of all, I want to thank the 3 ambassadors for their wonderful talks. And since one of the ambassadors has mentioned China for so many times, I feel like standing up and say something. In China, we have a saying. It's called, take care of yourself when you are poor, but take care of the world when you are rich. We are not completely rich yet, but we still want to take care of the world. And we want to share with the world what we have at the moment. That's why China has put forward so many strategies and Belt and Road initiatives and so on. Another saying or another belief of us Chinese is that if you have one more friend, you have one more door open for you. But if you have one more enemy, you have one more wall in front of you. That's why we like to make friends all over the world instead of building walls across us. Yeah, not like some other country. I don't want to mention the name, and you all know which country I'm referring to. You see, so that's the point I want to add. Thank you very much.
Let's go to the next, and I go to some comments on YouTube.
Boa noite, eu sou o Paulo Henrique, faço parte do Médicos Sem Fronteiras. Primeiramente, eu quero agradecer a todos pelas explanações, fantástico. E eu gostaria de saber do senhor, embaixador, no seu ponto de vista, como organizações globais pode contribuir para o soft power de África, pode, de alguma forma, mudar essa narrativa, porque a gente atua em diversos países e, de certa forma, a gente contribui para que essa narrativa negativa acaba crescendo cada vez mais. Como que organizações globais, seja de questão humanitária ou de ordem econômica, pode contribuir para que essa narrativa mude e possa olhar essa África grande, com mais de 1,3 bilhões de pessoas no mundo e que está crescendo cada vez mais?
Nome, Paulo, de Médicos Sem Fronteiras. Pois é uma das coisas que nós precisamos muito em África. E eu diria que para haver mudanças, essas mudanças têm que vir de dentro da África. As principais mudanças têm que acontecer em África. E depois, agora, exigir que as instituições globais tenham equidade e representatividade. Isto é que cria o equilíbrio e que dá a força que a África tem, mas que não tem exigido para participar no desenvolvimento do mundo. A África não pode continuar a ser vista como a zona pobre do mundo e a zona de guerras todos os dias, de golpes de Estado todos os dias, e onde os seus próprios filhos saem para procurar qualidade de vida fora. Tem-se que criar uma África que já existe, que eu gosto de falar da África grande, mas de assunção dos próprios africanos e dizer, olha, venha para a África porque a sua empresa vai ter sucessos aqui em África. Para isso, o que é que você tem que criar? Tem que criar paz, tranquilidade, justiça social. Quando você chama investidores externos para Botswana, ou para Cabo Verde, ou para Moçambique, ou para a África do Sul, você tem que dar garantias. Você tem que dizer, não, aqui em casa nós somos gente séria. E o senhor e os seus bens estão garantidos e você vai ter sucesso aqui. Essa face a África tem que mostrar ao mundo. Mostrar ao mundo enquanto exige que nas instituições globais esteja representado de acordo com, dentro da equidade e da representatividade. Uns não podem ser melhores que os outros. Era só isso.
Yes, and I have two more questions, so maybe you can also answer those. One is from Marcia Leite, who is online, is watching us online. Thank you, Marcia, for your question. It is from Miss Benetia and Mr. Jose, they both representing Cabo Verde and Botswana. She been to an exhibition called Expo Brasil Africa. And when she sees the diverse products from Africa, she is wondering how to increase the trade commerce between Africa and South America. And the next question, maybe also Ambassador Guillermo can answer that, is about the BRICS and Mercosur, what the chances are between the BRICS and Mercosur. So I don't know if you want to start, Ambassador, because you asked the word. Yeah.
What I wanted, first of all, what I wanted to answer regarding this very good question from our friend from Médecins Sans Frontières. And this relates to you, Lourdes, and to FAAP. When the doctor was saying about bringing the example of NGOs, I would say the role of academy, the role of universities. Ambassador José Pedro Chantre de Oliveira, he was referring to an element, a cultural element that I think it's the most relevant, politically relevant, which is the narratives. And this relates, Lourdes, you're a professor on communications in particular. The element of communications, it's absolutely crucial to create a conscience, self-conscious, and also towards the rest of the public. So what is the role, I would say, beyond NGOs? What is the role of academy, of universities in this creating spaces like this to bring about to make possible a better rational, logic, fact, evidenced debate about the real map of a small or a big Africa? This is what we need, because otherwise the communication process is trapped in a logic in which Africa will still be continue to be small, or Latin America, and the sources of all the bad news in the world, as if Africa was incapable of conducting its own destiny. I would say I was a very proud witness of what Africa did in 2012, immediately after the disaster, the economic disaster of 2009. Africa decided, while everyone was starting to say, well, let's be careful with trade, because trade is not so convenient, Africa said, we will stand together and we will create the free trade zone of Africa. And I was a witness there. I was sent by the Secretary General of the United Nations to witness that precisely in Addis Ababa. The reunion of these 54 countries saying, we don't care about what is happening outside, or we are caring what is happening outside, but we are deciding our own destiny. And they decided what? To reaffirm African integration and to bring together these three customs unions of Africa. That's a design of leadership. That's a demonstration of leadership. How many people knew about it? How many people remember it? How many people know about the integration process in Africa? Very little. So there is a role, this is to say that there is a particular role, because this is a communicational problem, number one, and because this is a fact-based debate that needs to take place precisely in universities and faculties. So you have a role to play. And regarding BRICS and Latin America, I think that's a very big debate, because we have very good partnerships with many, including China, to start with. Most of the Latin American countries have China as the first trading partner or the second trading partner. So there is, look, by the way, Uruguay has been even much more in some way advanced, saying we should have a free trade area or free trade negotiations, or at least a freeing trade, perhaps with partial liberalization with China, for example. We have been promoting, and there is a discussion, and there was a discussion last Friday between the ministers of foreign affairs of the four Mercosur countries, saying we have to speed up our negotiations with India as well. So there is ample room to safeguard our own interest. We have to be somehow defiant of what's happening by showing that we are positive in terms of what trade could bring in terms of growth and what could bring in terms of development. And it doesn't matter, we don't have to ask for authorization to third countries or to third powers. We know what to do among ourselves. And Africa should be a partner, particularly for agriculture, what Embrapa can offer to Africa, Embrapa, but also the rest of Latin American countries. My dear sister from Botswana, she was referring to animal husbandry. And of course, there's a lot of services also that we can provide in terms of veterinary, in terms of production, in terms of what we have been achieving, for example, in the dairy sector. So there's ample room. What we have to do is change the narrative, change the perspective, and have a political focus.
Yes, Ambassador, and also about the trade between African countries and South America, if you can. So we finish with this answer, okay?
Okay, thank you. But first, before I go to that, I would like to also touch on the issue referred to by our friend from Médecins Sans Frontières, to say that I think as NGOs, you're doing an amazing job. And I think for there to be change, it has to come from Africans. There has to be a mindset change. We have to believe in ourselves that we are not small, because we also perpetuate the idea that Africa is small. And for as long as we feel that we're small, we will be small. So you keep doing what you're doing, keep informing, because information is power, knowledge is power. You know, you keep teaching, and even if you can reach one person, that's one person more than there was yesterday. I think if you look at Namibia today, they have a woman president. And the next thing, what she did the next day was she said, all those countries who require us to visas from our nationals, they also need to get visas when they want to come to Namibia, because they know that they have something that the world wants. So we need to stop doubting ourselves and what we have, and also be equal. That I talked about being equal partners. We have to be equal partners. So if you're self-doubting, then you will always be small. So you keep teaching those people. Do what you do. I mean, if they see you as a Black man out there, it's encouragement in itself that, okay, my brother is here. You're a doctor? Was that no? Okay. Anyway, you are educated. Okay. So, but anyway, you're out there. You have a degree, so they know that nothing is impossible and everything is possible. I can be what I want to be if I put an effort into it. And just as Africa can be what it wants to be if we believe in ourselves as African. When it comes to increasing trade and commerce between Latin America and Africa, that one is tough because, you know, as I said, we have so many commonalities. The goods we trade are the same goods that you have. In Latin America, we have the same. I was talking about the Botswana beef earlier on. So when we're talking with Brazil, I'm not talking for us to buy beef from Brazil. And then I can't tell with Brazil buy beef from Botswana because but they're also doing quite a lot because they already sell a lot of beef to some African countries, South Africa, I mean, just animal products, beef, poultry, South Africa, Egypt, Angola, Mozambique, just to name but a few. There's aircrafts and all sorts of things that they sell to the African continent. So already there's a lot that is going on. Of course, it could be improved. I don't know how, as I said, because we are competing at a certain point, but there is a lot of trade that is going on amongst the Latin American countries and the African countries. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. We finished with it. Thank you very much, Ambassador. It was fantastic. I think it was a wonderful debate today. Thank you very much.